Bruchim Aboim B'Shem Hashem. Shem Yegin Shir Torah. We'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Zev Smith Shlita on the do's and don'ts of Duchaning. Shir Klali B'Dinei Nesias Kapayim. We'd like to give a big ashakayach to a board member of Yegin Shir Torah sponsoring today's shir, Rabbi Parnas, Lianish Mas Alviv, Rabbi Rom Zeber, and Psachar, Zechon Nevacha. I'd like to give a big ashakayach to a board member of Yegin Shir Torah for sponsoring today's shir, Rabbi Rom Shtayman, from Safety Fire, Sprinkler Lila Nishmas Over, Rabbi Yitzchak Yehuda, Ber Rabbi Yisrael, Sven Lavacha. I'd also like to thank Be'elam Shem for support for today's share. It's chutz for the Fuhr Shlema, for Isha Peril, Esther, Paschava, Besoich Shachayli Yisrael. Rav Smith.
Last Yom Tov we had a Shaila where someone was a little behind. He started Musaf late, and the kids, they started Duchaning, and he was in the middle of Shemona Esrei. And he wanted to know what to do. Should he stop listening, stop the Shemona Esrei, listen to the Duchaning? The truth is, in Eretz Yisrael, they Duchen every day. There's a daily Shaila. Then we had another Shaila, a few Yom Tovim back, there was no Kohen. So tzibur without a Kohen, should they wait till a Kohen comes, maybe Tircha the tzibura? So I was thinking now is the time to talk about Duchaning. This is a Chodesh Tishrei, we have the most Duchaning in Chutz La'aretz throughout the year. And Bemis, the Duchaning is a big sugya. It's one whole siman, Kuf Chav Ches, but the Mechaber has 45 simanim about Duchaning, so we can't do all of Duchaning, but we'll try to do one part of it. And that's basically the do's and don'ts, particularly for the Yisraelim. We'll do a little bit of Kohanim, but the Yisraelim's role in the mitzvah, what they're supposed to, what they're not supposed to do. So as our derech ways is, and here it's something very unique, I want to ask a simple shayla that's going to give us a lot of insight into the sugya. How do you understand this incredible mitzvah of Nesias Kapayim? We call it Birchas Kohanim. The Gemara calls it Birchas Kohanim. Is the pshat that the Kohen is giving us a bracha, and that the Kohen himself is giving us a bracha, which sounds like from the pasuk Koysu V'Orchos B'nei Yisrael. Now you wonder, a Kohen giving me a bracha? I mean, you know, let's say you talk about Chashva people. One of my Rabbeim, Zechon Lebracha, was a Talmud of the Brisker Rav in Brisk, and we once asked him if he gave, my Rebbe was a Kohen, and Brisker was a Levi, if he gave the Brisker Rav a bracha during the Nesias Kapayim. And did the Brisker Rav wash his hands? And he got all nervous. It was traumatic for him, but he realized and he remembered when he was a Bacha, the Brisker Rav, the Heilig Brisker Rav, washed his hands. Because he was a Kohen, and he duchened the Brisker Rav for the Brisker Rav. But is it as simple as that a Kohen that duchens is giving us the bracha? Now, there are many Chashva Kohanim, but then again, there are many simple Kohanim. Is a simple Kohen can give a bracha to an Adam Gadol? But the emes is, the Chinuch in Mitzvah Reish Samach Tes explains that a Kohen is like the Liebling of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Kohen is the one that's doing the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, and that's why even a Kohen, Amaretz, is able to give a bracha to Yisrael Talmid Chacham. So the question is the Kipshutai Koysu V'Orchos B'nei Yisrael? Or maybe, finish the pasuk. V'ani avar achem. The pasuk says at the end of the day, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives Klal Yisrael a bracha. What's the Kohen doing? He's the voice. Well, soon see maybe he's davening. Yivrech Hashem, he's davening, Yivrech Hashem v'yishmerecha, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom gives the bracha. But the question is very simple, with the nafkamin is the rest of the shir. Is the Kohen actually giving the bracha, Koysu V'Orchu, or is it Ani Avar Achem, and the Kohen is just doing the physical work, and he's the voice that Klal Yisrael hears? So Reis Apella, the Gemara in Chulam Mem Tes, asked this question, Kamat, Koysu V'Orchos B'nei Yisrael, it sounds like the Kohen's giving a bracha. What does it mean by Ani Avar Achem, for the Gemara? And for the Gemara, because the Kohen himself, where does he get a bracha from? If he's giving Klal Yisrael the bracha, very nice for Klal Yisrael. But what's the Kohen going to do? Zok the Gemara, that's the halacha of Ani Avar Achem. Kohanim have a special yichus, that they get the bracha from Borei Yola. So according to this sheet, that's a sheet of Rabbi Shmuel, the simple understanding of the Siyas Kepayim is the Kohen is giving Klal Yisrael the bracha, period. V'ani avarachem, the Bereshtam gives the Kohanim the bracha. But that's not the end of the story. Zogt the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva oime, no. V'ani avarachem, zogt Rabbi Kiva, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving Klal Yisrael the bracha. Koisavaruchu, they're just doing, they're going through the motions. But Zokti Gemara, according to Rabbi Kiva, the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving Yidden the bracha V'ani Avarachem. So our simple chakira is a machlokes Tanoim. Rabbi Shmuel holds Koisavaruchu, Ani Avarachem is going on the Kohanim, getting from the Olam, and Rabbi Kiva holds Kohanim are just the voice, or maybe they're davening, V'rech Hashem v'yishmerecha, but who's giving Klal Yisrael the bracha and the Kohanim? Ani avarachem. How do we paskin? Excellent question. The Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah, Perek Tezvav, halacha zayin, says it as clear as day. The Rambam in fact spells out, don't wonder, a Talmid Chacham wonders, a Kohen's giving me a bracha, this Kohen is a simple fellow, I'm much bigger than him. Zokti Rambam, it doesn't make a difference. Hadava tole bekehanim el HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's only totally V'ani Avarachem. Zokti Rambam, and that's pshat. We paskin like Rabbi Kiva. Who's giving Klal Yisrael the bracha? It's the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now the emes of the Rambam is not an eigen chiddush. The Yishalmi in Gittin Hey Tes Shloi Toime Ish Ploini Megala Rayish Sheifich Damim V'hu Mevarachai Rachmanu L'Tzlan. This Kohen was far from perfect. He was doing the worst averis. Zokta Bernstein, no, you're making a mistake. Mi Mevarachecha, Ani Mevarachecha, Shenema V'ani Avarachem. So the Rambam, based on the Yishalmi, based on the Baruch is telling us that really the Bernstein is giving all of us the brach. Now Avada, don't minimize in the midst of the Kiddush to give cover to Kahuna, even to Koyens and Amoritz. But as the Mechinuch and the Rambam Sefer Mitzvah Lamed Beis explains, he is the Rebbeinu Shalom's Liebling. In English they say he's pet. The Rebbeinu Shalom, he does the Avodah and he has special status. So again, a Kohen has a Yichus Atzmai. But in the end of the day, who's giving the Klal Yisrael the bracha? V'ani avarachem. The Kohanim, they're the voice of the Bari Olam, and or they're saying the bracha as a tefillah, V'rech Hashem v'yishmerecha, but the Rebbeinu Shalom is echoing the bracha mamish. Now, this is interesting. It's a medrash. The medrash in Bamidbar Yud Aleph Beis, Omri Yisrael v'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Olamim. We want you to give us the bracha. We don't want the Kohanim as the medium. So Rebbeinu Shalom responded, even though I told the Kohanim to give you the bracha, you should know the Kohanim are spreading out kapeim, their hands. We'll soon see the minhag of raising the hands. And ani oimed achareim, I'm behind them. And that's shot in the pasuk, mashkiach min hachalonos, meitzitz min hacharakim. In other words, the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, you're not losing out. Kohanim are doing the physical work because the Rebbeinu is not a guf, but I am giving the brachas from the Kohanim's fingers. And I saw a wonderful sefer Siach Birchas Kohanim, and he collects a number of Rishonim, the Ramban, Sefer Eshkol. What's most convincing, the Rashbam on the pasuk of Duchaning spells it out as clear as can be. Koisavaruchas b'nei Yisrael, Zokti the Rashbam. It's not like it's like someone says, you know what, you want a bracha, go to him. Let him do it. Chas v'shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, I am giving you the bracha. The Rashbam says it beferish, and he quotes the pasuk in Divrei Yom Beis, Perek Lamed pasuk Chav Zayin, where you see it also clearly that the Kohanim are just the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But who's giving the bracha at the end of the day? Bani avarachem. Also, this is the Rabbi Avram ben HaRambam, also spells it out. But what's peladik, listen to halacha and Shulchan Aruch. Read your Mechaba, which until today didn't have meaning, but now it's so beautiful. Zok the Mechaba and Siv Chav Gimel. I b'shasha Kohanim nevorchen am. It's talking to the Kohanim. Lo yabitu v'lo yasichu daitam. Don't look around. Don't be distracted. but be fully focused. Yo einayim klape shemayim kamay ha'oimed betfilah. Talking to a kohen during duchening, don't be distracted. Be like your oimed betfilah. What does it mean oimed betfilah? Zokt levush, Mr. Brewer quotes it, Shrei mispalim sheyevarach Hashem yizbarach es Yisrael. The Kohanim have to know this. The next time you zoych the duchen, yivrecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, you're talking, you're davening to the Rebbeinu Shleilam. Rebbeinu Shleilam, please give Klal Yisrael a bracha. Yor Hashem panav elecha v'choneka. The Kohanim are davening for that bracha, and the Rebbeinu, of course, is saying it b'Torah's bracha. Yivrecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. So it's a joint effort. Kaisavarchu is the voice. Tevilah. At the end of the day, who's the bracha? Is it? It's Borei Yolam. So this is Lamaisa quite clear, and to apply this Lamaisa, you'll see how many halachas are based on this simple understanding. First of all, in Sot Lamed Chesed Beis. Kaisavarchu b'nesiyos kapayim. We have to clarify a word. The hand is really what we call is the fingers. This part is called the zroya. This is the arm. The mitzvah Zokti Gemara is nesiyas kapayim. A kohen has to raise his hand. Now, halacha l'maisa, the hand without the arm is also good. The Kohanim pick up the hands, or the arm also, but the real chiyuv, and that's what most places can hold. The kapayim, the hand, lav dafka the zroya, the hand has to be raised. And that's why it's called nesiyas kapayim. Kapayim is the hand. Zok the Mechaba in Sif Yud Beis, Magbiyim Yadayim Keneged Kisvaisayim, and through that they Magbiyim Yad Yaminis Ksas Lamaylam. But the main mitzvah is the hands should be raised. The Ber Moshe in Chelik Dalet Simon Yazayin Rachmana Litzlan, if someone is missing an arm, he only has a hand, only has one hand, he can't duchen. It's a din in the Siyas Kapayim. In fact, the famous story of the Goyim that wanted to give someone a bracha before the chuppah of his Talmidim, and he was a little worried about the issa of Bal Toisiv. He put only one hand on the chassan's head. One hand is not Nesiyas Kapayim. But be that as it may, there's another part of this incredible mitzvah. Soit Lamed Testament Beis, Ein HaKohanim Rashoyu Lochav Kishre Etzbaiseyim Ad Sheyachziru Pneiim Min Atziv. In other words, the Gemara is assuming that when the Kohanim duchen, their hands, the fingers are spread out widely. The Gemara is saying that's the given. The Chiddush is when you finish duchening, don't close your hands, don't close your hands until you turn back to face the Aron HaKodesh. In other words, the assumption is the Kohen has to know his fingers must be spread out. The question is, why is that so integral to Nesiyas Kapayim? His fingers should be spread out. So this, the Poskim say, very simply, Rosh and Megillah, Gimel Chaf Aleph, because since the Shechina is between the fingers of the Kohanim, and the Rosh assumes we know the Medrash, Meitzis min acharakim, the Rebbeinu Shleim's Hashra Shechina is bursting forth from between the fingers of the Kohanim. So it makes sense, you have to have spread out fingers. Now it happens to be that I noticed there are 7 minhagim, different minhagim, how the Kohanim position their fingers. So each follow their own. But one thing, as the Medrash in Parshas Nasai, Yud Aleph, Beis, says as clear as can be, there is, even today, a certain Hashras HaShechina in between the fingers of Kohanim. That's called the Siyas Kapayim, and that's why it's an integral part of the Avodah. The Beis Yosef quote Shibbolei Haleket. Another reason why the fingers are spread out, because the Amos HaShechina, person knows his Shechina is in his fingers, he starts to tremble. So he says that's also why the fingers are spread out. But no doubt about it, the Mechaber says in Sif Yud Beis, Poishtin Yedeyem, V'cholkin Etzba'iseyem, Ki Mechavne Lasois Chameshes Avirim, that's the minhag of 5 different spaces, Ayin Sham. But no doubt about it, even today in Tavshin Peivav, the Kohanim are that conduit. They have that Hashras HaShechina between the fingers. Now this leads to the next halacha, and one really follows the other, and that is what we know since we're children. You're not to look at the Kohanim's hands. Why not? So the source of this is Chagiga Daf Tezayin, The Gemara says if someone mistakel b'Kohanim, so bisman shebeis hamikdash kayem she'oivden al duchanam u'mavorchen es Yisrael is Rachmana litzlan einav chaos. It doesn't say he gets blind, but he loses. His eyesight is weakened. Rashi says, why? Why, when you look at a kohen's hands, your eyesight is weakened? So Rashi, Shashchina shoyra al kishrei etzba yisayim. It's like you're looking at the shchina, and that, of course, is damaging. So again, it's very clear the unusual situation in the Birchas Kohanim. There's a shchina's presence. We'll soon see the shchina is giving the bracha. But the only concern is Tosfos in Chagiga asks on Rashi, because Rashi says this halacha of the shchina by the fingers of Kohanim is even bisman hazeh. For Tosfos, it doesn't make sense, because the Gemara says a mistaken Kohanim bisman shebeis hamikdash kayam. So today there's no beis hamikdash. Who said it's so damaging? And Tosfos suggests a different reason why the minhag is that you don't look at the Kohanim's hands, and that's integral to the Duchaning, and that is both Kohanim and Yisraelim have to be focused. Hesach hadas is the enemy. In fact, that's why a Kohen who's a Baal Mum can't duchen. Why not? Because you look at him and he looks strange and you get distracted. The enemy in duchening is distraction, hesach hadas. So Tosfos holds the reason why today, after the Churban Habayis, you don't look at a Kohen's hand is not because of Kedusha, rather it's because of distraction. However, Lamaisa, there are many Rishonim, Tosfos Rosh and Megillah, says it beferish, that even today, where there's no Beis HaMikdash, but there is a Hashras HaShchina by the fingers of the Kohanim. It's not totally. The Gemara Taka is talking about Bisman Beis HaKayim, it was a more intense Hashras HaShchina. But even today, Zok Tosfos Rosh, and that's Pshat in Rashi, even today there is an element of Hashras HaShchina in the Kohanim's fingers. Now for a Kohen, what a great schus that is. But this is a reality, and it's really the pasuk Meitzitz minhagim. And that's why I saw many poskim, Kafachayim, in Sivka and Kuf Mem, says it's based on a Zoya, that even after Churban Habayis, perhaps the Hashras HaShchina is somewhat limited, but it's still in existence. So it's Hesach Hadas according to Tosfos, and according to Rashi and many poskim, it's the actual Hashras HaShchina. And again, based on a Zoya, the Lashon is frightening, but very encouraging that a Kohen is Zoycha between his fingers to have the Hashras HaShchina. And that's why the Zoya's Lashon is, if you don't pay attention, it's a chutzpah. It's a chutzpah because the Shechina comes down to give you a bracha. Where are you? The Shechina is there. Ani avarchem, the Shechina is giving the bracha. And this is why we see a relatively new minhag. In halacha, it's a little of a mystery. But we see a minhag that did not exist. And that is the Kohanim cover their hands during the Duchaning. The Radvaz, to my knowledge, the earliest source, the Radvaz was the earliest Achronim, who's the Rebbe, the Shita Mekubetzes, in Chelik Dal Elef Pei. He writes, I see a minhag in Mitzrayim. He lived in Mitzrayim. But I see a new minhag that's not mentioned in the Mishnah Gemara, that the Kohanim should cover their hands during the Duchaning. Why? He says, Pashit, if the Shechin is Shayr Aleim, Meitz Milacharakim, it's not safe to have uncovered, exposed hands. So he says the minhag has become for the Kohen to cover his hands. The Beis Yosef says, in our Simon, he calls a minhag Yafa. A new minhag Yafa, don't forget. The Beis Yosef in Simon Lamed Aleph, in the Torah, the new Torah you see Lamed Aleph, he points out that the minhag in many places the Kohen didn't cover his hands. So here the big question is, who gives us the right to change the tzuras of Duchaning? We're assuming the Kohanim got up with their hands and arms exposed. More so, Tainid Rabbi Yankov Emden Marakatzia, he says, why do you change the minhag? I'll say, what's wrong? A lot's wrong. First of all, he says, if the Kohen's fingers is the presence of the Shechina, so why isn't it a problem of Chatzitza? That's the Chefta Shal Mitzvah Duchaning, and you're covering it? And Imamish is very emotional about it. When someone gives someone else a bracha, he doesn't cover his face and hands. He has a save upon him yafais, his face is glowing, his hands are generous. An enemy you don't look at. But a good friend, you give him with your eyes, with your hands, you're bursting with simcha. So why are we covering the source of bracha? And he feels the minhag has to be discontinued. And the biggest time which he has is, if it's such a good idea, why didn't the Gemara talk about it? So his taina is that it's wrong to cover the hands. And he says he found a Zohar that says that. And this is a shita which is not so mechudishdik, considering the whole minhag began in times of the Radvaz. But Lamaisa, the Achrayim, the Gdolei HaPoskim, the Darkei Moshe, accepted the minhag as halacha Lamaisa. But it's interesting the way he says it. Darkei Moshe, if got in Tezvav, he zok to Darkei Moshe that Lamaisa nehagin ha'am she'oisim kain, they do that k'dei shlo yuchlu listakel b'yad Kohanim. So he says two zachen. First of all, the Yisraelim, of course I mean Yisraelim including Leviim, of course, they should cover their face with a talis. Don't be tempted to look, cover your face with a talis. But then he adds, and also, HaKohanim, Mishtalshlim, Taliseim, Al Pneim, they cover their face, Aval Yedeim, Chutz LaTaliseim. The Darkei Moshe would not allow covering the hands. The hand is doing so much in Duchaning, he sees Kapayim, why are you covering it? Interessant. Now, Lamaisa, this is again very simple, that they cover the face, but the hands with the Duchaning, the 10 fingers, the Meitz Minhagim, that has to be exposed. So the Ramah definitely accepted the minhag in a certain sense, a limited way. The Beis Yosef quotes the minhag, and he says that the minhag is to cover even the hands. The Ramah recommends and says, "Nohagul shalshat haliyos al pneiim," and he says, "But the yedayim chutz latalis, b'yesh mekayim shenohagu sheyedayim lefnim min atalis shleistaklu am bohem." Now here I come to really an impasse as far as I'm concerned, because Lamaisa, the Ramah seems to favor the minhag not to cover the hand, and in fact, Mr. Brura says minhag zeh yoyse nachayin el yerabba v'hagra b'shar achrayim. So it seems from the Mishnah Berurah and the Ramah actually not to cover the hands. However, and more so the Rav Shulchan Aruch, he says it's based on a pasuk, Meitz Minhagim, a kohen should not cover his hands during the duchaning. Now it's mamish a solid case. Yet Poik Chazi, I didn't make a survey, but I asked a number of Kohanim, and the Kohanim's minhag is to cover the hand as well. Now this is based on the Aruch HaShulchan and Sif Lamed Vav, and the Kaf HaChaim in Kuf Mem Gimel. Kaf HaChaim proves it conclusively that you have to cover the hands as well because of the intense kedusha in the hands. So Lamaisa, if someone has a minhag not to cover the hands, that's their minhag. I did see in the Sefer Siach Berachas Kohanim, he quotes Rabbi Yanka Fisher, who is the Rav in Zichron Moshe, which is like pretty much a kibbutz goldis type of shul. There are many minhagim, and he basically allowed any minhag to go on, except regarding this, he would not allow a kohen to duchen if he left his hands exposed. He felt that's the minhag, and you want to do your minhag? Fine, go to your own shul. But with this minhag, he was makbid that kohanim should duchen with their hands covered as well. So Lamaisa, Rav Moshe in Chelikei Chavdal adds, he says, don't forget, Lamaisa, he says, today's a real chashash. People will, especially young children, will look at the kohen's hands. We're getting worse, not better. So we have to be more cautious. So Lamaisa will say the minhag is totally in each person's minhag, but definitely l'halach it seems that most minhagim is to follow the Aruch HaShulchan and the Kaf HaChaim based on the Zohar to cover the hand as well. Now I wondered out loud, maybe I have a teretz to be. I remember my Gersa the Yankis when I was a child. We went under the father's talis for the duchaning. Now I think it's pretty much mainstream that a lot of kids under one talis, being claustrophobic, it starts to fight and they start to make noise, and you need v'yasim l'chashalim under the talis. So the question is this minhag, which is rather a minhag that I saw the Rav Shulchan Aruch, he was makbid, he kept his children under the talis, but that was the children should not be distracted and look around. But the children fight and make noise and disturb others, is it really the right minhag today? Now, I'm not changing a minhag Yisrael. You know, Godler once said, you play around with the word minhag, you know what it spells? Gehenna. Minhag and Gehenna, the same words. So I don't want to play around with the minhagim, but if a father feels that putting all the children under the talis is distracting, so you got to find a better eitzah. Okay. Another interesting psak I did see, let's say there's not enough talisais to go around. There are a lot of Kohanim, and in that shul the children also duchen, katanim duchen. So zok t'shevet hakasi chelik aleph siman ayin tes, that if you have no talis you can't duchen. Because it's so distracting to see a kohen duchening without a talis. It's like a kohen balmum. So had it been just a cover at tzibur, no, you could overlook cover at tzibur. But this is a distraction that's startling. You're looking at a kohen, he's not, where's his talis? And that's really the real concern. So basically a talis should be made available to every kohen, and avada then he could duchen. Did you ever wonder, and this is a sugya in Yeridei and Reish Pei Beis, some hold even a Rav that's speaking should not stand with his back to the Aron HaKodesh. Like right now, that's what I'm doing, but here's the Aron HaKodesh, and the back should not be faced to Aron HaKodesh. Okay, the Taz is Mekel, I'll to cover the Torah. But what's funny is the Kohanim start off the Duchaning facing the Aron HaKodesh. Then they turn around and they Duchen. Why are they doing that? The question is, they're ending up Duchening the entire time with their backs toward the Aron HaKodesh. So, Beinu Bachai in Karakemach Erech Yira, what's the problem? They are doing something much more Kadosh-dik. They are housing the Shechina in their fingers. So if you do that, you can stand with your back facing the Aron HaKodesh. One of the G'dolei Rishonim, Kalach Hayad, but he had the emunah to see that a Kohen's hands is the Mishkan of the Shechina. So it allows turning one's back to the Aron HaKodesh. We also see from this, of course, the very great potential of Duchaning. I'll tell you another halacha. We all know, a Kohen knows this, he tries to make the Duchaning b'koil ram. That's the Bavli's version of koil ram, going on the Kohen. The Yushalmi inside the Perek Zayin, Mishnah Gimel, koil ram b'koiloi shel ram, milamed sheshitev HaKadosh Baruch Hu koiloi imohem. The Yushalmi is learning not koil ram going on the Kohen, koiloi shel ram, melech ram v'nisa. The Rebbeinu Shalom is supplementing your koil with his koil. So a kohen has a very, very unique opportunity. His hands have the Shechina, his mouth is the mouth of the Shechina, and he's joined by the Shechina. Now this is why we can understand a concept that I saw Kalach Hayad, but I found many Achrayim that say this as well. The Chesed La'alofim that was written by the Peleyoyitz on the Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Chav Ches, Sif Yotes, he writes, Kohanim and Yisraelim, make sure you know Hilchos Nesias Kapayim properly, and you do the mitzvah properly, because this is the only avodah that we still have ad hayoim from the Beis Hamikdash. We don't have karbanas, we don't have a menorah, we don't have a shulchan, but the Nesias Kapayim, as we know, was integral to the avodas Beis Hamikdash on a daily basis. When was it said? After the karbanos. So today we say it after Shachris, after the Shemona Esrei, because the Shemona Esrei corresponds to Karbanos. We say it before Sim Shalom, so the Sim Shalom Tefillah is going on the Duchaning as well. But he's assuming, and I others say this as well, that the Avodah is the one Avodah that we still do Bizman Hazeh. And that's why Lamaisa, the Poskim gave it this special uniqueness, a special chashivas. An Avodah like that is something that even today we are doing, like in the Beis Hamikdash. And I believe this is what Lamaisa you could explain. Otherwise, something is very strange. Lamaisa, the Bank of Emden in Morakatzia, in probably half a dozen, if not more places, in his Sefer Morakatzia on Archaim, in his Siddur, says repeatedly that the mitzvah, the raisa of Duchaning, is only shaykh in times of the Beis Hamikdash. Bizman hazeh, in Chutz La'aretz, or even in Eretz Yisrael, Bizman hazeh, Duchaning is only midrabanan. And he says this again probably a half a dozen times. He doesn't explain why, but the Shuas Yakov explains that perhaps since the Duchaning then was b'shem ha'mafurish. We don't have that today. So today it's not a deraisa. The Chafetz Chaim, very much not his style, very uncharacteristic in Shara Tzion, Sifkot and Kuf Lamed Aleph. He says, V'da, you should know that Duchaning today is a deraisa, even a Chutz La'aretz, and the Moraketzia made a mistake. Shaga B'zeh. I think I found 4 places in which the word writes such a lashon, but he wrote Shaga B'zeh, and he forgot a Sifra and a Sifri, a Yushalmi, and he goes on a Bavli, and Achkedoili Rishonim, all say the Ferish that Duchaning even today is the Raisa. That's Pilaploy. The Chafetz Chaim, the Eid Chafetz Chaim, he writes he made a mistake, and he forgot, and he makes a long list that Mamish makes it into a, as if it's not a statement. But I think it's Pasha. The Chafetz Chaim saw danger in this. Some people might take the liberty of saying, it's a machloikis if it's the Raisa or not. And you don't take it seriously. Chas v'shalom. It's the avodah that we have today from Beis HaMikdash. It's the avodah that even today, Koilei Shel Ram, and Ani Avarachem, and the Chafetz Chaim wanted to clarify this. It's not a shita. It's a mistake. And just for the record, if you look at the Shilas Yavitz, one of the Yavitz's Svarim, Aleph Nun Daled, he says it a few times. A kohen who doesn't duchen oiva ba'asei. I don't know if he had charata, I don't know how to explain that, but one thing I will say, even the Yavitz in one place seems to imply that it's taka a deraisa even today. So this is why we're going to say duchening is a deraisa even today. What I would like to add, which is also pretty pashut in Paiskim, is it's not only the deraisa for Kohanim. The Charedim writes there's a mitzvah on the Yisrael his borech, which means to stand with attention with their cheret and receive the bracha. The Sharei Tshuva, Rabbi Kiva Eiga, and Bir Halacha in the beginning of our Simon Kuf Chav Ches all quote this Charedim Halacha. What that means basically is it's a joint mitzvah. Kohen has to duchen, and Yisraelim have to listen. The Netziv, it's interesting, Netziv in the Emek HaNetziv on the Sifri, he explains why Chazal was so sensitive about don't add to the Berchos Kohanim. Don't play around with the words. Say the exact words and no more. And I quote his Heilig Lashon, Kol habrachos sheba'olam ad kisei hakavod nichlalu hakol b'milais ketzarei shebeberchos Kohanim. In those 15 words, you have every bracha known to mankind on this olam hazeh. So don't tamper with it. Don't touch it. So it's a bracha that has everything in it. It's something that Kohanim should do properly, and of course, Yisraelim should do their part. This explains another halacha l'maisa, and basically, the Maisa Shahaya, and this is, other places can say it, but this is the story of the Brisker Rebbe brings it out, I think, in a much more pronounced way. There was one morning in the Brisker Rebbe's minyan, whatever reason, there was no kohen for duchening. See, today, duchening is a novelty, it's a yom tov, but it's also a daily basis. But there was a day that there was no kohen for the duchening, by the Brisker Rebbe's minyan. So they thought, okay, well, there's no kohen. Brisker Rebbe stopped Chos Hashatz, told his children to go find 2 Kohanim. As you know, it's a hit to have 2 Kohanim. And they waited. The Kohanim came and they finished Chos Hashatz, they duchen. That was the end of the story. One B'yid, I don't know who he was, but if he started challenging the Brisker Rebbe's sak, he must have been Absayid. He asked the Brisker Rebbe, why did we wait? So Brisker Rebbe, we didn't have a kohen. Because there were 2 problems. Number 1, he said, it's a hefsik. Melosh Manas, you're mafsik. Chos Hashatz, you're mafsik. And number 2, Tirchat Tzibura. So the Rav told him, hefsik is not a problem. Hefsik is only a problem if shak and ligmas kula. We don't wait so long. And then he said, I tircha the tzibura. So I quote his lashon. He says, when a yid has a tzara, so he goes a derech harucha lemerchakim, or he waits online to get a bracha from a tzaddik, which is wonderful. Does anybody say tircha the tzibura? So oy bazoi, to wait for a bracha that the Torah is made ba'ani avarachem, and the bracha is so powerful, was that tircha the tzibura? Now this I saw, Rabbi David Cohen has askama that say for Siach Berchos Kohanim. He said he heard many times from the Rabbi Steinmetz Zechaynu L'Bracha. Steinmetz said, I can't understand. People come to me, they need a bracha, a yeskula, a fuah, Yeshua. He says, why don't you go listen to Duchaning? Is there any opportunity of bracha, of Yeshuas, of schoolas, refuahs like Duchaning? It's a bracha that the Rebbeinu Shalom hiftiach Ani avarachem. And he says, and both of them are not minimizing in Birchas Tzadikim, but the opportunity of a Birchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the fingers and the voice and the kosher, it's all real. So basically, we have to understand, and Taka Rav Steinman, on a regular basis, people need Yeshua. In the Chutz La'aretz, find the Svar the Sheminyan, whoever duchens, but it's a skula that's guaranteed. Do we need more? What the Gemara says in Soitel, Amid Chesed Amid Beis, it's almost hard to say it. Melamed HaKadosh Baruch Hu mis'ave leberchas Kohanim. Now the word taiva is a very gashmistic word. First one is a taiva, but you know what Pshat is very pashut. A loving father knows his children need something. He knows exactly where they could get it. So he's mis'ave, they should go and get it. The Baruch Shalom knows what berchas Kohanim is, ani avarachem, b'koil shel ram, and the mates minhagim. And if we don't take advantage, it's a tzar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But mida toiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mis'aver leberchas Kohanim. In fact, I saw once a taich, I forgot where I saw it, but in front of the Kadmoinim, the Kohanim make a bracha, leberchas Am Yisrael b'yahava. So avad the b'ahava is going on the Kohen. He has to give a bracha b'yahava. But the pshat is also, the Banisham, Shergam said, v'tzivanu, the Banisham with a hava was mitzvah kind to give us a bracha. The Hav is going Kadosh Baruch Hu, his love for us, mis'aveh, made the tzivoy of Berchas Kohanim for the Kohen. And this gives much meaning to what the Yosef Oimitz, one of the Kadmonim, Simon Tafsaf Yud Beis, he quotes the Charedim, that Israel also has a mitzvah of duchening, and therefore he says, besides the fact that it's lanos atzmoi, Yisraelim, wake up, it's your benefit, it's for you. More than that, he says, it is also an opportunity of Kvod HaShechina. So he says, if you don't take the bracha seriously, it's like imisloitzes bebrachos, and Rachmanu Litzlan, it just makes the Aveira a very serious one. So basically, again, it's a joint effort. Kohanim and Yisraelim have to work together. Now, this gives meaning to another big sugya in halacha. The Gemara in Soita Daf Mem says it b'lashon tmiya. Klum yesh l'cha eved shemevarchen oisai ve'enoi mazin? Or the Gemara's lashon is yesh l'cha eved shemevarchen oisai ve'enoi mazbir ponim yafais? This is an integral part of Hilchos Duchaning for Yisraelim. And to put it bluntly, we have to listen properly, respectfully. If the Chavetz Chaim is giving you a bracha, you wouldn't take out your phone and see who called. And if the person is giving you a bracha right now, from the fingers of the Kohanim, the Koili Shalram, how serious you have to take it. Now, in Eretz Yisrael, do it every single day. It doesn't take away from its Kedusha. But at least in Chutz L'Haaretz, it should be listening and realizing what it's all about. And that's taka why the Mechaber and Siv Chav Gimel, when the Kohanim are duchening, that taka, the Kohanim cover their face, we cover our hands, we cover our face also. And the Mechaber says in Siv Chav Vav, important to mention, when the Kohanim are giving the bracha, saying the actual words, don't be busy with anything else. Now this is tempting, because a person had a bad dream, so he decides he's going to come to the duchening, he's going to say the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Yiratzim, and hopefully that will cover the bad dream, which is right. But as soon as the Chazan says the words V'yishmerecha, stop what you're doing and listen to the Kohanim's words. Saying the tefillah but missing the duchening is Meniach HaSa'ika and Taifas the Tafel. So you could say all the tefillahs, but when they're saying, the Kohen is saying the word which is the real bracha, we have to stop and listen, nothing else should go on. There's a whole sugya, as I mentioned, of a Kohen Balmum. He can't duchen. What's wrong with him? It's only a Gashmistic problem. True. But Lamaisa, he's distracting. And the halacha gives us insight. This halacha, I think, will give us a little more insight to a beautiful, beautiful feeling, a heritage of Zalman once expressed. Let's say, in the middle of duchening, you hear Kedusha. Now, in America, Chutz La'aretz is not Negeya. But in Eretz Yisrael, they duchen every single day. So they have, we have these concurrent minyanim, we call them minyan factories. So when you have minyans going on left and right, everything happens. But you could be in one room and they're duchening. And the room next to you, they're saying Kedusha. What would you as a Yisrael do during duchening you hear Kedusha? So we know listening to Kedusha saying Kedusha is a deraisa. Mikdash Terech B'nai Yisrael. Mr. Baruch quotes Tarizal. Zotib Shleima Zalman, Halicha Shleima, Perik Yud, Halacha Daled, a beautiful insight. Right now, the Rebbe is talking to you. Even Kedusha is inappropriate. When a Melech's talking to you, you don't do something else. You listen. Now, I guess he means to say the Gemara in the site that I mentioned, Klum yesh evet sh'rabim avarchanoisai, and he's not listening. He says, maybe fakert, when you're davening Shemona Esrei, you're talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you hear Kedusha in the background, you're allowed to listen, and you're Shemei Kohanim. Because there you're talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu, a different story. When the person is talking to you, Rabbi Yid, wake up, derech eretz. So he says nothing but nothing goes on during Duchaning. It's a total, complete attention to the bracha. Simple, beautiful, but it's really true. This is an opportunity of Rabbi Mevarchanoisai. Now, incidentally, let's go to Vakert Shayla. Someone's a Milah Shemona Esrei, they start Duchaning. It could be Negeya in Chutz La'aretz if he's late, whatever, long Shemona Esrei. Eretz Yisrael, it's very Negeya. So Lamaisa, at first glance, I thought of the famous Machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi, this is in Brachas Chav Mabeis, where someone's davening Shemona Esrei and he hears Kedusha. So Rashi says, no problem, listen, and be to Shemei Kohanim. For Tosfos, Monashach, if Shemei Kohanim is so effective, it's a hefsek. So how do we paskin? Tosfos says, God la minig. So the same thing is true for Nesias Kapayim, but it's not true. Because when does Tosfos object to listening by Kedusha? You have to come on to a Shemeya Kohanim. You listen, you have to be Kohanim. Tosfos hold that's a hefsek. But Duchaning, there's no inyan of Shemeya Kohanim. You're a Yisrael, not a Kohen. You don't have to be Yoy Shemeya Kohanim. It's a din in Shmiya. Shmiya without Kohanim is not a hefsek. Who says this? Not me, Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe in the Tshuva, beautiful Tshuva, Chelek Avkov, Ayin Gimel. Rav David, his son, asked him, why do the Nusach Svar blow shofar during the Rosh Hashanah davening? Why don't you chayish for a hefsek? At least like Tosfos. He says, because there's no din of Shemei Kohanim by Tkiyah shofar. Like there's no din of Shemei Kohanim by laning. He doesn't mention Nesias Kapayim, but of course it's Pashut. So that's one reason that in Milah Shemona Esrei you pause and listen into Duchaning. But there's another cheshbon. I saw Rav Moshe and Chelek Daled and Chaf Aleph, Rav Zalman, Shevet Alevi, Tzitz Eliezer. Everybody says this. Another reason in Milah Shemona Esrei you have to listen to Duchaning is because Klum yesh evet shemavarchanoisai. The Baruch is talking to you. Pay attention. Now there's no chashash hefsek. It would be a chutzpah to ignore it. So that's halacha l'maisa. Listen and be yoitza by listening. Now I must mention that the poskim say that if you're holding, let's say you're davening mila with the shots, you're holding by that with Nesias Kapayim is being said, then not only are you allowed to listen, you're allowed to say amen as well. It's like you're saying Kedusha after Mechayim Eisim before Atakadosh. If you're holding punkt where Nesias Kapayim is said, you could even answer amen. Rav Moshe and the Tshuva and others say this also, that if you mill up Psukkah Birchas Krishma, he's probably dreadfully late. But anyhow, mill up Birchas Krishma and the Duchaning, you're allowed to listen and even say amen. Because the amen of Duchaning is a cut above the regular amen. Next group of questions, again, also a very important part of do's and don'ts for both Kohanim and Yisraelim. In Soit Lamed Ches, the Gemara says, Koisavaruchu panim keneged panim. The Duchaning has to be Kohanim facing the Yisraelim. Rashi explains, it's going both on Kohen and Yisrael, they have to face each other. Now, the simple meaning is that when you're looking at someone, so you connect with him. There's less hesach hadas, and there's more kavanah. Now, lemaisa, if one is not keneged panim of the Kohanim, the Gemara in Soit Lamed Ches Amud Beis says, Am shecharei Kohanim einam bichlal bracha. Very important point. In other words, let's say I'm a Kohen, and I'm Duchaning right now, where I am. So whoever's in front of me is Yoitza. If someone's standing behind me, let's say by the Mizrach Van, behind me on either side, he's Am Shacharei Kohanim. He's facing the back of Kohanim. Zogtimar, not only it's not the Maila Panim Keneged Panim, but he loses the Duchanim because he's Acharei Kohanim. And this is, Rashi explains, because you don't care enough to go and get the bracha, you stand by your sheina mizrach vant, that's an avla. You have to stand with hachna in front of the birchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, birchas Kohanim, and get the bracha. So we see there's a plus or a chiyuv of panim keneged panim to the extent that it loses the bracha if it's not panim keneged panim. Now this is in Sif Yud, like the Kohanim machzir pneim klape ha'am. That's when they turn around and they face the olam. In Sif Chav Dalid, the Mechaber says that the Israelis should be facing the Kohanim. And the Sif Chav Dalid, the Mechaber says, unfortunately, if you're not facing the Kohanim, you don't get the bracha. Now, Lamaisa, this, now we understand a little better why the Kohanim cover their hands. Because if they're supposed to be looking at the Kohanim, panim keneged panim, they're tempted to look. And that's why the Kohanim cover their hands. I once witnessed this. It was I was davening somebody on Yom Tov, and a bacha who obviously didn't want to go under his father's talus. So he decided, he had his own idea, he turned around and faced the back of the shul. So basically, he gave up the bracha. He didn't know better. But he's wrong. You don't do that. You face the Kohanim at all costs. So what he could do is close his eyes, or some people put their hat over, or maybe go on his father's talus, but don't turn the other direction. That's taka damaging. Now, you might notice, sometimes you see that when the Kohanim line up, some people leave their seat wherever they sit, in the back maybe, and they stand right in front of a kohen. Where is that coming from? So the emphasis, the literal reading of the word panim keneged panim is unclear. Does it mean I'm mamish facing you, I could hear you breathing? Or does it mean a position? Don't be facing the other direction. Be in front, but you could be in the back seat. You're still in panim keneged panim. So the emphasis, the pashtus is not dafka in front of the kohen. It means in the right direction. Rav Sternbuch and Chayil Gimel Membav point out the lashon of the Ram and Hilchos Tefillah that seems to be kipshutai in front of the Kohanim. And that's taka why the minhag in brisk is, if you can, stand in front of the kohen mamish. I did see the minhag Chassam Sofer was like this minhag, to go, he left his seat wherever it was and stood mamish in front of the kohen, panim keneged panim. Now Lamaisa from the Gemara is klar, that's not a chiyuv. Because Gemara says even a machitz shel barzay in a mafsekes. So let's be very clear. It's a hidur, but it has to be done within reason. Because you can't have the whole tzibur standing in front of Kohanim. It's just, there's only one row, and and the rest of the rows can't. And in fact, I saw the Beis Baruch Alamed Beis Kuf Mem Hey. He says if someone's not holding the bai, it's yuara. Oh, punk! Now he becomes a grace to tzaddik. So that's a little bit chiddush, because Lamaisa the Paiskim do say it's a maila. But I think we could say what makes sense as always. Don't fight for it. Don't push someone out of his place. If it's available, gesund teheit. If it's not, the same bracha goes as long as you're standing facing the Kohanim, not behind the Kohanim. Where it's also important to mention some Rishonim. I saw two Rishonim say this lashon. Yisrael should move to get the bracha. In other words, make a gesture movement, a foot or two or three, show that you want to shtel too. So, just to stand there and it comes your way is good, but a little better would be going to get the bracha. Now, what that means, Lamaisa, don't take someone else's seat. But if you show that it's important, you do something to go forward. So again, it's not a chiyuv whatsoever. Chaim Kanievsky insisted there's no inyan to do it. I mean, the briskers do it, that's their minhag. But what I found really interesting, a number of Sfarim said that the stipler was makbid to always stand mamish next to the kohen. So Rab Chaim, in that sefer that I mentioned in Siach Berchs Kanim, and the Orchos Rabbeinu both say it's not a raya, because the stipler was hard of hearing, so he couldn't hear. So he had no choice; he had to stand next to the kohen. So Rab Chaim says, but if you're not hard of hearing, there's no inyan klal lahader. Now again, people do it, nothing wrong, but again, it's not feasible. People have to be left out. So if you feel if it's not the chav lacherim, gesund teheit. Now this leads to the next question, and that simply is those that have the mizrach van seat. And see, in this shul it's probably very negeya, because the Kohanim will make a line by the Arna Kodesh, but there are seats on both sides of me, the mizrach van, and they're ending up acharei Kohanim. If I'm a kohen, right? So the people in their regular seat on the mizrach are behind me. So the Bach, and our Simon says, but they have no choice. You can't sit in someone else's seat. What should they do? So the Bach made it like as if it's an oinus. And we'll soon see an oinus is considered am shebesados. Tainet the Magen, what do you mean it's oinus? The Kohanim are not using their seats for duchening. Take their seats. Practical. Take the Kohen seats. And the Mishnah quotes the Magen Avram halacha. A person should not say, well, that's my seat, I can't change it. Find an eitzah. It's important, find an eitzah. So Lamaisa, if you have a Mizravan seat, you have to part with it, find a place. Again, don't take someone else's seat, but find an area that's not chav lacherim and stand there. Now, Lu Yitzur. There's no eitzah. I'll give you a simple example. The shah that I began with. Someone that wasn't, forget, he was a good person. He knew he davens long Shemona Esrei, so he went to the Mizrach Vant, not to disturb people that want to back up and see him davening. So it's very nice to stand in the front. But by duchening, he didn't realize the duchening, and they started duchening. He was mamish by the Mizrach Vant, and he was facing the back of the Kohanim. He was behind the Kohanim. So that we would call an am shebesados. We'll soon see. If he's an oinus, he couldn't go in the right place, he's yoytze anyhow. Rav Moshe in Chelik Dalet says he shouldn't change his place during Shemona Esrei. He's doing Shemona Esrei, don't move your place. But no doubt about it, the right way to do it is to go in front of the Kohanim before duchening. If someone is stuck where he is, the bracha is just as good. It's a ged of am shebesados. Agav, I must mention that there is a minhag that a lot of shuls have it, right, this shul not yet, that they have a duchen. Now, we call duchening, it's funny, the word duchen is a stand, like a platform. The shuls that made duchen a platform was to simulate like the Beis Hamikdash, there was a duchen. They kind of made the bracha, Mrs. Kapayim, on a duchen. So we call it duchening, it's funny, duchen means a stand, a elevation. So the Poskim say, this I saw, there's an old sefer that they reprinted recently, Koisa Baruchu, that it's inappropriate that if the Kohanim are not on a duchen, and you like to stand on the bima, you have an elevated beam in your shul, no good. You shouldn't be higher than the Kohanim. They should be higher than you. Now, if you don't have a duchen, no, so it's same level, but don't be higher than the Kohanim. Another point I wanted to mention, we had the shayla, someone was very ill, and he pasha couldn't stand. He's in a wheelchair, or he's sitting, but he can't stand for an extended period of time. Could he get the Birchas Kohanim as a Yisrael who's not standing? So it's pashut. The Magen Avram and Sifkat and Chabez nearly that the Yisrael allowed to sit. It's only a din that a Kohen Likuva has to stand, but not Yisrael. He writes nearly because I guess he didn't find it earlier because it's pashut. Now I wonder again aloud about another shayla I always think about. There are some shul that do have a duchen. They have a platform. So it's pretty, they have, let's say, 15 Kohanim. They all squeeze onto the platform. So they're all standing on the duchen. So let's imagine this shul. So here, visual aid. They're all standing on the platform in this area. Now, but the rest of the length of the shul on both sides, they're no Kohanim. Now, does that mean anybody that's sitting on the sides are not yoytze? Because no Kohen in front of them. So that the Mechaber says, no. If you're in front of the Kohanim, l'tzadim is also good. As long as you're a standing position in front of the Kohanim. But to me it makes sense. There's a shtickle mile in a duchen, but probably a bigger mile to service Klal Yisrael properly. It's probably better that Kohanim should spread out, make a line. So now the whole Mizrach Vant has Kohanim facing Yisrael, and all the Eden are properly lifnei Kohanim. The duchen mile is a shtickle mile, but this is probably more of a mile in the duchening itself. So it makes sense if you could do it again, if it's shaykh, avadish, you could do it. So the whole Mizrach Vant is lined with Kohanim, and the entire tzibur are getting straight panim el panim kipshute. But again, if you're on the side, it's also good. Lifneim, the stadim is also good. If someone's like in this base medrash, they have a few of them. They have a beam. So a milah shul is a beam, and you're placed by the beam. So this the Mechaber says, I feel a mechita shel bars la'enim afsekes. As long as you're standing in front of the Kohanim, the fact that a beam or two in the way doesn't take away from the chshivas of the duchening. Undetected sometimes the chazan, like in this shul, his bima, his amid is flush with the Mizrach Vant. Kohanim line up, sometimes he is behind the Kohanim. So I saw both Reb Chaim Kanievsky was asked to Shaila and other Paiskim, and they both said, so change his, move his bima, move his amid. The Kohen also has to be Lefnei Kohanim. Now, if he started and it was too late to change, so he's an Am Shebasades. But Avada, he should be in the right position. A real problem, and some old shuls have it ad hayoim, that the Ezras Noshim, the shuls on one floor. The Ezras Noshim, let's say in this shul, would be behind. In this, behind the shul, like over here. So they have an Ezras Noshim, they have open windows. If the Ezras Noshim is behind the Arna Kodesh, that means by Duchaning, all the women are Chayre Kohanim. So Zok the Kinyan Torah Chelik Hey, Simon Yud, and Chaim Kanievsky, and that safe as a tshuva also says, you have to correct it. They come to shul to be Chayre Kohanim. If there's no choice, then Chanami, but make it a choice. Find an option. B'chlal, women should know that coming to shul is a great schus, but they should try, again, when possible, to be upstairs or downstairs, whatever it is, in front of the Kohanim. They're standing outside watching the babies. They don't want the children to disturb, which is very nice. Stand in front of the shul where they're standing in front of the Kohanim. The last group of questions basically is when someone cannot come to Duchaning. Either he's ill or there is no Kohen. So this is an incredible chiddush of Gemara in Sot Lamechesem at Beis. The Gemara says that if someone can't come to shul, he's included what's called Am Shebesodais. Now Rashi says an interesting chiddush. Rashi says he's at work in the fields and he can't make it to shul. Because those days they duchened like in Eretz Yisrael every day. So if he can't make it, he's included in the bracha anyhow. And how that works, that's a good kasha. But that's the Baruch Shalom's chesed. If you're an oinus, if you can't make it, you're included in the bracha. Mr. Bura quoting Rashi, it's Rashi in Roshana Daf Tezayin and Rashi Bayos, that if you don't come because you don't care, then you're not b'chal the bracha. But if you show chashiv that you can't make it, that is am shebesadis and is included in the bracha. A mitzvah lefarsim, people nebuch are not well, they're sick, they can't come to shul, and for them more than the machla, they're sick about not coming to shul. And I miss duchening. Say stop. You didn't miss duchening. As chayla at home is an am shebesadis achal ashitas. Rav Moshe in Chelik Hey, Simon Chav Sivkon Chav Gimel says women at home with children that would love to come to shul but they can't. The child's crying, child's not well. Stay home. That's am shebesadis, and you yoitza the bracha as if he would be their mamish. One point which I didn't iron out, I couldn't find more than this. I'll tell you what I found. Let's say a person lives in Chutz La'aretz, and one of the chesroinus in Chutz La'aretz, we don't have duchening. Is it shaykh at all that we could be am shebesadis from the duchening in Eretz Yisrael on a daily basis? So there is a quote from the Shlo. When the Shlo was in Eretz Yisrael, he wrote a letter to his family. And the Shlo was not a kohen, don't forget. But he writes, I'm listening to duchening every day, and I have you in mind. Now what that means, I'm not sure. I don't think the Shlo was able to transfer this Yizkapayim to Chutz La'aretz. But what I did see, and that is the Rav Moshe Chelik Beis Lamed Aleph, the Licha Shleim, Yud HaOrazayim, Chaim Kanievsky, and a few tshuvas, and tshuvas on August, Talid, Lamed Tes. They say, Am Shebesadis does not go forever, all over. It works in the area where you live, and you couldn't make it to shul. That's Am Shebesadis. But it doesn't seem to work from country to country. It's not an international privilege. So they all say that, what could you do? You're an oinus. But some give money to a kohen to have him in mind during duchening. So Chaim says that makes no sense. Because if it doesn't work, money's not going to help. You can't buy a schus. So I know some people may have this skula, but I'll leave it an interesting halacha, which is also halacha l'maisa. There's a minig quoted by Mr. Bura or Chashulchan. I found also earlier say this, that when the kohen finishes duchening, you say yashikoyach kohen. So first of all, the belt says shkoyach. Shkoyach makes no sense. Shkoyach means forget. The word is yasher koyach, like the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, or ayasher koyach. That means you should get strength. Now, this is mentioned, again, Mr. Bura says it, don't say ashkoyach during Kaddish, but it's definitely an old minig. The question is, why are we giving the kohen a bracha? What did he do? He did a mitzvah, he's mechoyev to. So I'm thinking one cheshbon is simple. What do you mean? But l'maisa lanos atzmecha, it's good for you. So be a mensch. He had to do it, but you're getting a benefit. Like oirech toy, ma'u oimeh, it's all b'shvili. But it's more than that. Because if you say the Kohen is really giving the bracha, he's the voice of Kadosh Baruch Hu, then it makes a lot of sense, he gets the Yashikayach. And if not, he's gets the Yashikayach. He's just doing the motions, it's the Baruch Sham's bracha, he's going through the tircha, at least give him a Yashikayach. So Lamaisa, the Paiskim will say that there is that minig, but to me what the Pella was, on Rosh Hashanah, I saw the Matafrayim, the Ksei Amata cautions, don't say Yashikayach Kohanim until they finish all the Tekiyas. Because otherwise, the Yashikayach is a hefsik in the Meya Koilas. Yet Rav Moshe, I saw this in two Svarim, and I heard from Eidei Riyah, Rav Moshe, who davened the Ashkenaz, right after the Duchaning, he would say Yashikayach Kohanim before they finished all the Tekiyas. And Rav Moshe held that the Yashikayach is part of the Duchaning. Can't wait. So obviously, the Kohen gets the Yashikayach. We should all get the bracha from the Kohanim. I'm going to talk to you all.
The grace of Yashikayach. Yashikayach. It's a smith for today's shir. I'd like to give Yashikayach to the sponsors of today's shir, Rabbi Parnas, Lila Nishmas Oviv, Rabbi Rom Zeber, Misachas, Vena Bracha, and Yishkach to Rabbi Rom Otra Steinman from Safety 5, Sprinkle, Lila Nishmas Oviv, Rabbi Yitzhak Yudah, Rabbi Yisrael, also Be'elam Shemes, Chutz Refuah Shteiman for Peril Esther, Bas Chava, B'Soich Shechel Yisrael. Whoever wasn't able to be Mishtatif in the annual dinner of Irgenshir Torah the other week could still be Mishtatif now, and I have a chelik and a botzas Torah of Irgenshir Torah throughout the year. Von Anja ben Akashem, Rotzakish Baruch Lezakis, is the Sol Figure Hibbelum Torah Mitzvah Shnema, the Neu Chalfes, the Man Sidke, Yagdul Torah V'Yader.
Hey!
Any Svadikanim want to duchen now for them? I can also have a sikim on duchening.
Yes, definitely it's an unusual mitzvah as we saw. It's something that Chazal tell us that the Shechin is giving the bracha. It's the last avodah we have still from the Beis Hamikdash that we do in Eretz Yisrael on a daily basis. The Kohen basically is pronouncing the bracha. Maybe it's a tefillah for the bracha, but who's giving the bracha? The Kohanim open their fingers that the Shechinah should be able to have Ashuras Shechinah there. They raise their hands, and the Shechinah is mates with those cracks and crevices in the fingers. That's why it's so important not to look, because it's like looking at the Shechinah. We cover the minhag is to cover the hands, even though that's the main part of the bracha. Even though it should be uncovered, but we have to cover it because of the intense kedusha. But l'chol is klum yesh evet sherabim vorchin, to avoid hesech hadas. Children under the talus of the father should be done if it works. If it's more distracting than beneficial, find a different eitzah. When there's a kohen has no talus, should not duchen because he is distracting. A kohen that is allowed to has back to the Arna Kodesh because he has a shechina in his hands kivayachol. And as we said earlier, the last avoid in the Beis Hamikdash is the duchening. The basic concept that today there's a deraisa even bisman hazeh, even by Yisraelim are a partner in that bracha. It's the best bracha one could receive, and therefore we give so much attention to Birchas Sadikim. Good, but even more so Birchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara Lashon is HaKadosh Baruch Hu mis'ava le Birchas Kohanim, and that's what the Baruch Hu wants to give. And l'hanos atzmeinu, it's for us, and that's why basically the intention has to be shown to show the right chashivas. We stop a tefillah and listen to every word of Yirech Hashem, like the Netziv says, every bracha is in those words. We should, Milash Esra, we should listen to Duchaning, but we don't say Kedusha during Duchaning, because the person is talking to us. When a person is holding in Berachas Krishma, he could answer even Amen. Panim Keneged Panim goes both ways. They should be facing one another to keep a focus. You don't have to be in front of the Kohen Mamish, although some are mahad on that. a person should not turn his back to the back, not to look at the Kohanim. That's terribly wrong, obviously. The Mizrach people should move and stand in front of the Kohanim. The Kohanim should spread out better than being on the Duchen, so all of the tzibur is in front of the Kohanim. But again, Ein Bachitcha Barazla Mafsekes, a Chazan and as Nashim should be in front of the Kohanim when they Duchen. Am Shebesodais, if it's an Oynis, is included in the bracha. And Chutz La'aretz, we wait for the Geula to have once again the brachas of Kohanim. Yeah.